Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
You'll get more than you expect with McValue at McDonald's. Like deals on your late-night go-tos when the party goes till dawn. And savings on their faves. So date night always passes the vibe check. Plus, when the fam shows up for the weekend, you can show out for breakfast.
Buy one breakfast sandwich, add one for $1. Only in the app. Limited time only at participating McDonald's. Valid once a day. Must opt into rewards. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
So being a farmer is stressful at the best of times. If you're not worried about the weather, you're worried about crop prices on a daily basis. And the market this summer has been amplified tenfold. We're in the midst of a two-front trade war with the U.S. and now China, with China slapping big import duties on Canadian canola products. The agribusiness sector also hit with supply chain risks, discussions about supply management, and that as part of a possible negotiation ploy with the Trump administration and the federal government. So a lot of things going on. And it could all lead to, of course, higher prices at the grocery store. That's always something in the spotlight when we're talking about agricultural products. Welcome to In This Economy. My name is Mike Eppel, and to talk about what's going on in agribusiness and the like, I'm joined by Professor Mike von Massow, food professor at the University of Guelph. Good morning, Professor. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Doing well. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to our conversation.
How's your summer going? Is the summer busier for you because you focus on the food and agribusiness sector?
Yes, summer is busy. There's less structure, no classes, but there's lots going on. And we always say how much of our research we're going to get done, and we rarely get as much done as we hope.
So would you be taking what has transpired over the past several weeks, the new situation with China hitting our canola market and whatever else they're hitting us with tariffs on, would this actually be a topic that you'd discuss with any of your classes at Guelph?
Without a doubt, we try in class to talk about issues that are current, particularly in my 4th year strategic management course. We'll often start class by saying what's in the news and what does it mean for the agriculture and food industry. So yeah, it's interesting times, but it also makes for great discussions and great learning opportunities.
Well, this move by China to again accuse Canada of dumping canola seed into the Chinese market, they're accusing us of one thing, but at the same time, they only started the investigation into this after Canada slapped tariffs on Chinese EVs, aluminum and steel. So, I mean, they're trying to compare apples to oranges, if you will, or canola to wheat, maybe. I don't know. But what was your takeaway when you saw that? Do they have any type of a case? And if so, or if not, what's it doing to the market and Canadian farmers right now?
This is without a doubt a retaliation for the EV tariffs. Every country has support, but a 75% tariff is completely unwarranted in terms of what the WTO standards are. And that's made even more obvious because this is the second time they've done it. The first time they did it was when Canada arrested the Huawei CEO, and it maintained until she was released. So it's clearly weaponizing trade and playing geopolitics. So it's, I would argue, unwarranted. They'd argue that the EV tariffs are unwarranted. We'll leave that one for the negotiations. The impact on Canadian farmers is substantial. 2/3 of the canola we export, I think it's something like 6 million tons, goes to China. You don't find another home for that with the snap of the fingers. We talk about diversifying our export market, and that's a great thing. But that's a big customer that you're not going to replace with the snap of a finger. It's particularly problematic. I mean, strategically, I would argue that the Chinese government has done a couple of very smart things. The timing is problematic for us because that crop is in the ground, right? It's not like it happened in February or January and farmers could say, "Oh, the prices have come down. I'm going to sort of shuffle my planting intentions." That crop is in the ground. It's going to come off in the coming weeks, and unless you forward contracted it, the price has come down substantially. We know that the Chinese put originally, I think it was in March, a tariff on Canadian canola oil and oil cake, which they took less oil, and the industry has found some workarounds. We were exporting seed to places like the UAE, who were crushing it and selling it to China, so they were still using the product. Now it's the big volume product. It's going to be harder to work around that. So the impact on Canadian farmers is substantial. That impact is primarily focused in the West. 98% of the canola acres are in Western Canada. And strategically, again, from the Chinese government's perspective, finding a divisive issue in a time where it's playing East versus West, or West versus East, if you will, is I think, again, a smart strategic move on their part, which will make it even more difficult to sort of argue, oh, well, in trade, we've got these trade-offs. It's not like EVs are helping the Ontario economy and these tariffs will hurt the Ontario economy and will net out about even. This is the Ontario economy benefiting from EV tariffs in conjunction with the US, and the West getting hurt by these tariffs. So the timing and the choice, really, it's not great to be a Canadian on that, but if you have to admire their choice.
You see these big grain elevators, but is there actually storage capacity? Or, if they don't ship at a certain time, does this stuff just go by the wayside?
Well, in the proper situation, you can store canola for quite some time. There is not capacity on the prairies for the volume of canola that we'll be producing, not on farms and not in elevators. Elevators work on turns, right? They want product to come in and then go out. They're essentially an aggregator. They bring product in, put it on rail and get it out, or put it on trucks and get it out. And so this will be an issue. And in years like this, we often see canola or wheat, depending on what's in excess, getting stored on the ground outside, which is not good for quality. You then start experiencing losses. So as soon as that harvest starts to come in, if it's not going to China, we're going to start having storage busting at the seams and perhaps even some outside storage. So from a managing the crop perspective, that's problematic, but it's also especially problematic from a cash flow perspective for these farmers, right? You spend the money in the spring, the fuel, the seed, the fertilizer, the herbicide, all of that is spent. And if you can't sell the product in the fall, you're sitting on an operating loan that's going to start accruing interest with a depreciating asset. So yeah, it's going to get tough pretty quickly here.
I wonder if that's why companies like John Deere lowered their earnings guidance, because they're seeing this coming down the pike, that farmers, talk about cash flow, they're not going to have a lot of money just sitting aside to buy new equipment. That's a sidebar, though. The fact, we talk about tariffs, the countries that impose the tariffs, China, like you say, they're importing $4 to $5 billion worth of Canadian canola. Do they have another supplier, or are they just going to tell their citizens use vegetable oil or something else?
Well, yeah, they're going to use substitutes. They're going to look at vegetable oil products that give them an option. There's no one as big in canola as Canada is. So if they're either going to have to spend more on canola, so prices will come down in Canada in reaction to the tariffs, and prices will go up in China. In these tariff discussions, we often hear, well, the domestic market pays for it. And that's generally true, but in circumstances where we can't sell that somewhere else, in some cases the exporter price will come down, which is what Mr. Trump argues, and to ensure that demand continues in that country. So there'll be a partly more expensive canola oil, which will then get substituted for some other products. Palm oil, as an example, from the South Pacific is more expensive right now. And so it means prices will go up in China. They're hoping that we blink before they do, I think, to a large degree.
How much we've heard from Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe calling for, the feds to get involved, not just from the negotiation standpoint, but to backstop, monetarily what the farmers might need. You think that's, I guess, short-term solution, but to what end and what kind of dollars would we even be talking about?
Well, it'd be substantial dollars to do it, but I expect we'll see government do that. They've done it in other sectors as well. So in the short term, they'll try and sort of buffer the impact of this, and we'll have to make decisions on how committed they are to the EV tariffs, or if there's something else that they can concede to the Chinese in order to remove these tariffs. Last time it didn't happen until we released the Huawei, negotiated the release of the Huawei executive. It might require us stepping away from the EV tariffs, which have been fairly unpopular generally in Canada, but it may be something else. So in the short run, I expect we'll see government support to compensate for the losses, and in the long term, there's no doubt that the Canadian government, the Chinese government are interacting regularly, and see if they can come up to a negotiated solution.
Changing the focus to other industries that have been affected by these tariffs, and coming back to the idea about the fact that American companies, and after the trade war was escalated by Trump on various products, the Bick's Pickle Company was making headlines this week, in as much as Bick's pickles and pickling products are disappearing from Canadian shelves. The backstory, though, is that Bick's was bought out, if memory serves, by Smucker's in 2010. They moved their production to Wisconsin in 2014, and now they're kind of paying the price because they still use Canadian cucumbers, but those are being hit by a 25% tariffs. The origination of where production is actually taking place matters. Maybe it seemed like a good idea to move to the States then, but now maybe not so much. Cross-border issues for these companies causing some big problems.
Yeah, who knew pickles were like automobiles? Well, and I think what originally the federal government did a reasonably good job of selecting things for retaliatory tariffs that would minimize the impact on Canada. So things that had substitutes either from within Canada or outside of Canada. And I think that was the thinking on pickles. And so unless you're stuck on buying specifically Bick's pickles, you had other options. So Bick's pickles went up in price, demand went down, so many stores have taken them off because they worry about how many times they turn their inventory, so they've taken them off the shelves. What I don't think people looked at when they put tariffs on pickles was the cross-border flow of inputs. So it's my understanding from Bick's that they buy cucumbers in Canada. They actually buy the lids for their jars in Canada. So we've inadvertently hurt Canadian farmers and Canadian lid manufacturers by putting a tariff on something that everyone perceived was coming from the US. I think this story got more legs because lots of people still sort of view Bick's as a Canadian brand. It was a family-owned business from Scarborough. You're right. It was originally bought by Kraft and then by Smuckers, and then production moved to the south. But again, we have this cross-border movement of ingredients that we know happens in automobiles, but happens in the agriculture and food sector as well. So we've inadvertently hurt some of our own farmers by tariffing pickles.
Stop by Sherwin-Williams and get 30% off select paints and stains August 15th through the 18th. It's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Refresh your home inside and out with colors that make every space feel brand new. From cozy interiors to stunning exteriors, we've got the perfect shade for your next project. Visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store or shop the sale online. Delivery available on qualifying orders. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
You'll get more than you expect with McValue at McDonald's. Like deals on your late night go-tos when the party goes till dawn. And savings on their faves. So date night always passes the vibe check. Plus, when the fam shows up for the weekend, you can show out for breakfast.
Buy one breakfast sandwich, add one for $1. Only in the app. Limited time only at participating McDonald's. Valid once a day. Must opt into rewards. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Overall, trade talks seem to be at a standstill. It's really been crickets on the trade file, despite the latest tariffs being put into place. There's been a lot of discussion about what the Canadian government is going to be willing to give Trump as a trophy, so to speak, notwithstanding the possibility that the USMCA trade deal might be renegotiated in advance. So maybe this is all tied together. But one of the big arguments from the states is, well, Canadian supply management, this system that protects Canadian dairy, is something that's always stuck in their craw, it seems like, even though, the effects are somewhat, exaggerated, to say the least, some of the numbers that they throw around out of the States from a propaganda standpoint. That seems to be a third rail, though. It always has been from a trade standpoint, because supply management on dairy is very much tied to Quebec agribusiness and the dairy industry there. Do you think that's even a possibility that there would be a give there from our standpoint on trying to get a trade deal of any nature?
Yeah, that's the billion-dollar question. I think if you listen to, so let me take a step back. It's clear that supply management in dairy is political in Canada because of the importance of Quebec as an electoral bloc, and so. We have a significant dairy industry in Ontario and across the country. So it's not just about Quebec, but especially politically in Quebec. You could say the same thing about the U.S. Wisconsin, which is a large dairy producer. I think there are more cows in Wisconsin than there are in the country of Canada. Wisconsin is a swing state. And so that's one of the reasons I think that there is specific attention on dairy. If you step back and say what the dairy industry in the U.S. is saying, we don't necessarily think you need to dismantle supply management, but we think that some of the access you've given us has been difficult to get access to because of a variety of regulatory and how import quotas are allocated. They said, we'd just like to get the access that we've negotiated for. There's some back and forth there. Does supply management in dairy mean we'll never come up with a trade agreement? No, not necessarily at all, because we've, last time with the Trump administration, we negotiated one where we gave some increased access, and he called that the best deal ever. Our deal with the European Union has also provided access, so we can make deals. It's not just about, okay, we'll just get rid of supply management. We have to recognize that, frankly, they have similar programs in the U.S., not in the dairy industry, but in the sugar industry, where they have 300% tariffs on tariff rate quotas. And frankly, they have considerable support for their dairy industry, but it is structured differently than ours. And the big, beautiful bill in the U.S. actually increased support for the dairy industry and makes it more like, because they guarantee a minimum margin on milk production, there's no control on milk production. So the additional support might make it more likely that they would ship cheap milk, or most likely dairy products. We don't ship raw milk great distances because of how much water is in it. So might there be concessions? Perhaps. I don't think we're going to see the end of supply management at all. All of the major political parties have said they support supply management for a variety of reasons. And so might there be some concessions? Perhaps, although the bill that just passed in the House said that we're not allowed to make any. And can we make a deal without that? Yeah, undoubtedly. There will be things that there will be things that we can compromise across the board. And in fact, in the last couple of weeks, the dairy industry in the U.S. has said, it's not about dismantling supply management. It's about being a little bit clearer and fairer about our access. So I expect we'll come up with some sort of compromise there.
Well, I just remember, winding down a system like supply management for dairy would cost billions. Certainly. I remember growing up in the tobacco industry. I went through the family farm and the wind down of the marketing board system for tobacco, and that cost, I think, an estimated $2 billion. Now that came from the tobacco companies at the time due to lawsuits or from lawsuits. Such an interwoven part of Canadian agribusiness. I couldn't necessarily see it happening. So if you have a trade deal where we manage to ship more goods to the States and they bring more stuff here, well, I think that would be palatable for all.
We have to remember trade is a good thing. Trade, we benefit from trade. That doesn't mean that there aren't some people hurt, but on the net we gain from trade. So, and in fact, our trade, if you include services, we have a trade deficit with the U.S. and the majority. Well, if you took out oil or energy, I guess gas and oil, we would have a product trade deficit with the U.S. and so notwithstanding Mr. Trump's arguments that they don't need anything from us, it becomes obvious when he put tariffs on everything, which were removed quickly. He put smaller tariffs on energy and on fertilizer. Right, 70% of the potash applied to U.S. fields. Farm fields comes from Canada. The majority of the rest comes from Russia and Belarus, which are hardly the gold standard of predictable trade partners. So I think that it makes sense for us to find a deal that is mutually beneficial, and it makes sense for us to respect the policy decisions that we make in each of our countries and find ways to work where there is mutual benefit. That's difficult to do with an unpredictable administration in the U.S., but I expect we'll continue to work hard to try and do it.
Well, you've got a whole bunch of very interesting topics for your classes coming up in, actually, it's just a few weeks away now and towards September. So a lot of good content for your students to discuss. That's for sure.
There will be interesting discussions throughout the fall, and I expect for years to come. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
We want your feedback and tell us what you think and any story ideas that you may have. And remember to download other Frequency podcast content like the Roz and Mocha Show and other shows on the Seeker app. That's SEEKR, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Thanks for listening. Take care.
Stop by Sherwin-Williams and get 30% off select paints and stains August 15th through the 18th. It's the perfect time to transform your space with color. Refresh your home inside and out with colors that make every space feel brand new. From cozy interiors to stunning exteriors, we've got the perfect shade for your next project. Visit your neighborhood Sherwin-Williams store or shop the sale online. Delivery available on qualifying orders. Click the banner to learn more. Retail sales only. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
You'll get more than you expect with McValue at McDonald's. Like deals on your late night go-tos when the party goes till dawn. And savings on their faves. So date night always passes the vibe check. Plus, when the fam shows up for the weekend, you can show out for breakfast.
Buy one breakfast sandwich, add one for $1. Only in the app. Limited time only at participating McDonald's. Valid once a day. Must opt into rewards. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.